Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making some mesh shorts to match this little like swimsuit cover up top, and I'm pretty sure I'll post this tutorial first, so if you want to make this as well, feel free to go check out that video. Starting off with our materials, we're using weight 4 acrylic yarn, a 5mm hook, a darning needle, and scissors. These shorts are not going to be like super skin tight, fitting to your body perfectly, because I want them to be like comfier and slouchy like this top is. So if you are wanting a more skin tight short, you could kind of like adapt the pattern to like just make it smaller to fit you, or you could just use it in my video because it might just like not mesh with what you're looking for if that's what you're looking for. But starting off, we're going to make a slip knot, tighten it up, and then we're going to make a row of foundation double crochets. So chaining 2, turning over, going into the 2 loops of that first chain, pulling through once, pulling through 2, and pulling through 2. There's our first one. And so we're going to continue this row until it reaches all the way around your entire waist, or whatever height that you're going to have the top of the shorts be, but with some extra. So you're not going to do this pulling it tight to be able to fit. You're going to literally just like lay it across, and you still want to have a little extra wiggle room because we are going to be adding a drawstring that will allow it to be tighter when you actually are wearing it. Okay, so at this point, the waistband fits like pretty much exactly, so I'm gonna add like a good 5 more, because again, I really want this to fit like nice and loose, and there's like no point for a drawstring if it does already fit skin tight. And so once that row is done, you're gonna lay it completely flat, fold it in half, again making sure it's flat, and then you're gonna slip stitch into the top of the previous row, like that. And then I'm just gonna pull it through a little bit extra, because what I'm gonna do at this point as well is grab my darning needle, put this end on here, and go through this bottom corner, and then just tie it on, pulling it through like that. And then I'm gonna knot it a second time, just make sure it's secure. And I like doing this at the beginning because then you don't have to stitch anything together at the end to like connect it. Now we're gonna start our first mesh row, which in reality it doesn't matter what stitches you're doing for your mesh rows and your solid rows. You can just change it up, but I would recommend that for your first one you do a smaller one so that the drawstring fits through it nicely instead of being a big gap. Like if you were doing double treble crochets, this is how big the gap is going to be. So what I'm going to do is chain 2, double crochet into the first stitch, chain 2 again, skip 2 stitches and double crochet into the third, and just repeat that the whole row, chaining 2, skipping 2, double crochet, I would also say that at this point you could definitely try it on to make sure that it does fit, like being able to get it on, because since it is going to be like a little bit oversized and like a comfier fit, it doesn't matter if it's like wider than it needs to be. It's almost like better if it is, since we do have that drawstring to make it stay on when you're actually wearing it. And then at the very end, when you either have 1 stitch left or 2 stitches left, you're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into the beginning of the row. Next, I'm going to do a row of double treble crochets. So we're going to chain 4, wrap the yarn 3 times around our hook, and make our double treble crochet into that double crochet from the previous row. Chaining 2, skipping those 2 chains and doing a double treble crochet into the double crochet, and repeating that 2 chains, double treble crochet all the way around the row. And so again, if you want to do your own mesh pattern of, instead of treble or double treble crochets this row, you're doing half double crochets, or you're doing treble crochet mesh stitches, or even doing double crochet mesh stitches again, it really does not make a difference. You can switch it up as you please, and you can also make it match the top if you have already made the top, or you can make it different because it is still going to look like it matches even if you don't do the exact same pattern every single row. Because for mine, I want there to be less solid stitches than there are in the top, so mine definitely isn't going to exactly match, but when you look at them side by side, you can tell that they definitely match and are the same like vibe. And then at the end of the row, doing the same thing, chaining 2 and slip stitching into the top of those chains. And for our next row, I'm going to do treble crochets, so chaining 3, wrapping the yarn around my hook twice, and then doing a treble crochet into that double treble crochet from the previous row. Chaining 2, skipping my 2 chains and doing a treble crochet. At the end of our row, doing our last treble crochet, chaining 2, and slip stitching into the top of the chains. For our next row, I'm going to do double crochets, so chaining 2, double crochet into that first stitch, 2 double crochets into the gap, 1 double crochet into the stitch, 2 into the gap, and just repeating this the entire row. And so now at the end of the row, doing our 2 double crochets into the gap, and then slip stitching into the chain from the beginning of the row. So now, you might already be able to tell, I am going to repeat the same pattern again. So doing my double crochets, double crochet gap, double treble crochet gap, and then treble crochet gap. And then I think that's as long as I'm going to make it, but I might end up wanting it longer, I'm not sure yet. But essentially, again, you can either repeat the same thing or you can switch it up. So, starting off with our first row, chaining 2, double crocheting into the first double crochet, chaining 2, skipping 2, double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, and repeating that for the entire row. At this point, it probably is going to be way shorter than it needs to be, but you can always be trying it on at the end of every row to see how much longer you want it, or if it's too long and then you just need to take apart the last row that you did, just so that you don't end up getting to the very end and realizing the length is way different from you wanted. And at the end, chaining 2 and slip stitching into the chain. Okay, so now I'm going to figure out where the middle of the shorts is. So I'm just going to kind of line up all the gaps, and then I'm going to count to make sure there's the same on each side. Okay, so now that it's lined up, we can start our next row, but we're gonna pause our stitches once we get to that halfway point. So you can either just count how many mesh stitches it is, keep track of it as you're going, or you could use a stitch marker, but I am just going to count and keep track. So 1, 2, 3, 4, chaining 4, and doing my first double treble crochet into the double crochet from the previous round, chaining 2, and now I'm going to start counting as I go to make sure I get to that halfway point and stop. And so now I have one gap before my halfway point. If you are making the skirt version, you are literally just going to continue doing your normal stitches for the rest of the row, slip stitching at the end of the row just like normal, and then making this as long as you want. So adding more rows if you want it, or not adding more if you don't want any more. Now what we're going to do is chain 2, do our double treble crochet, but now we're going to chain 4 and slip stitch into that chain at the beginning of the row. Again, this is only if you're doing the shorts. And now I want to have one more row just to complete and have a little bit more length. So I'm going to chain 3, do my treble crochet into the double treble crochet from the previous row, chain 2, skip 2, treble crochet, and repeat that for the rest of this row, remembering that my new row is just this one pant leg. So when I get to here, I'm gonna go across these chains. I'm not gonna go this direction. Now that I've done my treble crochet before the chains, I'm going to chain 2, skip 2 and treble crochet into the third chain, chain 2, and then slip stitch into this chain. And so now, if you want to add more length to the short leg, then you can do that now. You're just going to keep doing these rows at the end of the row. Instead of having to do the like awkward stitch into the chain, you'll be doing your normal last stitch, chain 2, slip stitch, just like normal. And you can make it as long as you need it, but that is how long I'm going to do mine. So I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my work. Now what we're going to do to start the second pant leg is go into the same stitch where we had the chains at our double treble crochet row, which was the first pant leg on the other side, or the first row of the pant leg on the other side. Grab our yarn, pull it through, and then we're gonna tie it on. And I'm gonna double knot. Then we're gonna push through and grab our yarn and chain 4. Then we're gonna make a double treble crochet into that same stitch. So it's a lot into the same spot, but it should be able to fit in there. Then you're going to chain 2, skip 2, and double treble crochet into that first double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double treble crochet, and we're going to do this all the way around until we reach this halfway point again. So now what we're gonna do is a little bit different from what we did on the other side. We have our middle section here with our 4 chains, but what we're gonna do now, instead of immediately going to the chain from the beginning of the row, is chain 2, double crochet into this little corner spot, chain 2, double crochet into this middle area, chain 2, double crochet into the middle of this chain, chain 2, double crochet into the end of this chain, and then we're going to chain 2, and instead of slip stitching into the beginning of the row like we normally would, we're going to treble crochet into the treble crochet. Then we're going to chain 2, skip 2, and treble crochet. And we're going to repeat this for most of the row, but we're going to pause before we get to this middle section that we just did. Okay, so now that we are nearing the middle section, which starts like right here, we are essentially just gonna like decrease down into nothing. You want to have 3 stitches left until that middle section starts. For our first one, we're gonna chain 2 and double crochet. Then we're gonna chain 2 and single crochet. And so after the single crochet, what we're gonna do is chain 2, single crochet into the middle of the 3 stitches we have at the middle, and then chain 2 and single crochet into that treble crochet at the corner. So you're just making like a tiny gap row, but it doesn't need to be as wide. Then we're gonna chain 1 and cut off our work. Now, all we have to do is make our drawstring. So you either could do a ton of chains and then loop it through and it'll work the exact same way, or you can do a like altered version of foundation single crochets that makes them just a little bit smaller, just because then it's a little bit stronger and thicker. So you're going to make your slip knot, do 2 chains, and then you're going to go through the 2 loops of the first one, pull them up, but now instead of going through 1 and then yarn over, go through 2, you're going to go through those 2 loops, pull up, and then just yarn over, go through 2. Then you're going to go into these 2 side loops, pull through, yarn over, go through 2. And then we're just going to continue that until it reaches a pretty long drawstring, because you want to have enough room to tie it, and depending if you want to literally just do a knot or if you want to do a bow, you do need some extra string for there. And since it's also going to be looping through the gaps, you need it to be like extra long. So I would make it at first just the width all the way around that it's going to reach, and then add maybe 5 to 10 stitches along to that. Okay, now that I've reached the end, I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my work, pull it through, and now all we have to do is weave it through. So the one thing you want to make sure is that you're lining it up with the middle. So the middle is pretty much like right here. So what I'm going to do is just tuck one side here so that I already know that's the right spot. And then I'm just going to be weaving it through so that it's under the stitch and then over the stitch. So you're just going to be alternating the pattern so that each gap, it'll go under and then over, and then the next one under again, the next one over again. And you're just going to repeat this all the way around until it reaches the front. And if you realize that you didn't make it long enough, you can take apart the chain 1, cut off your work that you did at the end, and then just do a magic knot to add more yarn and keep going until it reaches as long as it needs to be. Okay, so now that I'm at the last one, I'm going to go under and then pull it through so that it matches up with this one. But then I'm just going to pull it through a little bit more so that they're more even at the front and on this side. There we go. And so now all we have to do is weave in our ends, but I'm on a little bit of a time crunch, so I'm just going to show you how to weave in one, and then if you need a longer or more in-depth tutorial, you can check out my ultimate beginner tutorial or my tank top tutorial or my halter top tutorial. A lot of them show weaving in ends. So what I'm going to do is just grab this one at the bottom. The easiest way to put the yarn over your needle is to slide it over, pull it off, and then wiggle it through the eye of the needle. and then we're just gonna weave it through, back and forth, through the stitch, back out the side, just alternating directions. And there we go. Now we can cut it off. And that is our first end weaved in, and we just have to do the rest of them before the shorts are done. But that is where I'm gonna leave you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I honestly had so much fun making these shorts, and I feel like they turned out really cute. If you have any questions, make sure to let me know down below, and I will do my best to help. If you make one of these, please make sure to tag me. I would love to see it, and once enough people have tagged me, I will make like a spotlight post showing all of your creations, because it is so cool knowing that other people actually make the stuff that I make tutorials for. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!